So this is my fourth PvP guide now, and we're covering Infiltration. It's not quite as versatile as Scrapper, but it can still burst very high, and it's very fun to play, and it's incredibly good at 1v1s as well. I'll just add that this rotation is what I prefer and use the most. There are several ways to do it, but this is my favourite opener. Starting off in stealth is highly advised for every fight possible in order to use Spinning Kick, and it also gives Shadow's Respite, which I'll get to later. Spinning Kick, since it's direct damage, will also give you an Infiltration Tactics proc for your Shadow Strike. Shadow Strike goes next in order to reduce the armor. I see lots of people not doing this, and I don't know why. If you want to do your max burst, you need to have this debuff on, which is why I use Shadow Strike before Force Breach. Before you use Force Breach though, you need to activate Force Potency in between to create 3 Breaching Shadow stacks. Now I realise after Force Breach on the chart it looks quite messy. There's a lot going on here, but it's all very simple once you get to know it. It would help here to explain that after Force Breach, the goal for Infiltration is to build Breaching Shadow stacks as fast as possible in order to use Force Breach again as quickly as you can. Melee attacks can naturally build stacks for Force Breach when Shadow Technique procs, and the only force attack that can proc Shadow Technique is Psychokinetic Blast with stacks of Clairvoyance. You use Clairvoyance Strike twice for 100% Clairvoyance chance, and then you use Psychokinetic Blast. Another set of 2 Clairvoyance Strikes comes after. The second of these 2 Clairvoyance Strikes will proc Shadow Strike again, since it's been long enough since the first one we did after opening with Spinning Kick. So these next 4 moves are a combo of high backloaded bursts that are very quick at finishing someone off, especially since this Shadow Strike is auto-critted from the 6-piece bonus. So you do crit Shadow Strike, Psycho Blast, Force Breach, and then Spinning Strike Execute if you're down there, you normally are. It may happen that you have 3 Breaching Shadow stacks before the second Psychokinetic Blast in the chain, and this will be from natural Shadow Technique procs from the melee attacks, in which case you just shift Force Breach up before the second Psycho Blast, but it's the same set of moves overall. After the opener, if they're not dead, you can use this algorithm in your head to sustain high DPS. You can think of Infiltration as 6-second blocks of using Psychokinetic Blast on cooldown, and using the 3 globals in between to get all the procs for it for Psychokinetic Blast, as well as fitting in your Shadow Strikes and Force Breaches. You never fire off a Psychokinetic Blast without 2 stacks of Clairvoyance, and also never use it while carrying 3 Breaching Shadow stacks. It's a waste because it just refreshes it and you don't build a stack. There will be some times where your Psychokinetic Blast comes off cooldown at the same time as you get 3 stacks of Breaching Shadows from a melee attack just before it, in which case you always use Force Breach first. If they're both lit up, Force Breach first always. Lastly, it's highly recommended not to use Shadow Strike without its proc. It'll eat up your force because it's 50 force per hit and you've only got 100. There's very few situations where it's worth it otherwise. Utilities next, and the problem I'm trying to bypass with my choices here is that Infiltration is pretty susceptible to being kited by pretty much everyone. With that in mind, 15% move speed. As long as you're moving faster than they are, you can catch up. Fairly simple. Celerity is good for its 30 seconds less on stun breakup, but more importantly, it reduces force speed by 5 seconds. If you've played Shadow Bit in PvP already, you'll come to realize force speed is never available enough. It has to be used almost always as soon as it's ready. Force Wake is helpful for the route to peel for teammates and generally improves the effect of a knockback quite a lot, because without it you knock them back and they just walk straight back to you. This helps. The armor boost or damage reduction under stun would be nice to have, but ultimately if you can't stay in melee range then you lose the fight anyway. In the middle tier, Aggress is the 100% mandatory choice. Don't queue for war zones without it, really. Second choice is between Force Harmonics for the extra potency charge if you're looking to boost your offense, or Mind Over Matter for the defensive help and the longer force speed. Alternate the 2 and see which one you prefer, though if it's worth anything I like the defense more. You don't need Fade really, you go in and out of stealth so much the blackout is always getting reset. 12 seconds of CC immunity, yes please, that's no brainer. And instant force sleeve, it's nice to have up your sleeve, but as an alternative to either of those, Cloak of Resilience if you want a more reliable escape, since Resilience will cleanse all the dots when you use Force Cloak and you'll get away for sure. I'll cover a few other aspects of Infiltration. So firstly, take Double Strike and Project off your bars. They're made completely redundant to the spec by their replacements. Never ever use them. Whirling Blow is handy to keep bound for AoE interrupts to get a whole group at once. For stopping caps from range, Low Slash is good, but if it's on cooldown then you can extend Telekinetic Throw to 30 meters with Force Potency. Next is a move you probably all know about, but the guide would be incomplete without it. The Low Slash into Mind Crush is a very good boost in 1v1, and you should use it where possible. It's impractical in big group fights, however, because of pushback when trying to cast it. Shadows have taunts, don't neglect them. If you do neglect them, then you're not playing the class properly, and it's that simple. Don't make excuses for not using them. In Infiltration, Blackout has 3 uses, which are either stealth utility, DPS boost, or as a defensive cooldown. You still use it to make your stealth harder to detect, but outside of stealth, it'll give you Shadow's Respite for quicker resource generation, and also 25% damage reduction for 6 seconds. Just don't use it soon after leaving stealth, since you already get 6 seconds of it after coming out of stealth. Lastly, look at this cocktail of control given to us. The only CC you don't get is a pull, everything else is covered. Though just as a disclaimer to other classes so they don't get angry with this, we have no CC built into our rotational abilities. You have to depart from your rotation to control someone, unlike other classes where you might have something like a slow built into an ability that you use all the time. One final thing I need to add in, which I see a lot of people doing wrong, is using Psychokinetic Blast when it's lit up, but it's not actually ready. This is a lie, this light up. The light is a lie, because it lights up when it's got 2 stacks of Circling Shadows, but actually you should only use it once you've got 2 stacks of Clairvoyance too. So ignore the light up for this, really, because you need to be looking at this bar instead. Thank you for watching, and I hope I helped you somehow.